A rabbit in pain will not tell you. It will sit very still, in the corner, looking exactly like a rabbit having a quiet afternoon. Its face changes. The eyes narrow, the cheeks flatten, the whiskers pull back. And that is the entire signal. Vets score it on a chart because the animal itself will not make a sound. That is not stoicism. It is arithmetic that goes back millions of years. A rabbit that limps in a field is the rabbit the fox picks. So the ones that showed pain got eaten, and the ones that hid it had babies. And after enough generations, you get an animal that will sit quietly and let something kill it from the inside rather than admit anything is wrong. Which means most rabbits that die of neglect look fine right up until they don't. A pet rabbit can live 12 years. Ask people how long they think one lives and you will hear 2, maybe 3. That gap is not trivia. It is the reason rabbits are the third most abandoned pet in America, behind dogs and cats. And the reason most of the ones sold at Easter never reached their first birthday. We sell this animal to children as a beginner's pet. It is among the most demanding animals a household can take on. So, 100 facts about the rabbit. What it actually is, the mind we never bothered to look for, the body that can kill it in 8 hours, the war we fought against it with a virus, and why almost everything we were taught about keeping one is wrong. This channel gives you the animal as the research finds it, not as the pet shop describes it. Subscribe and let's go. One promise before the list. There is a single thing you can change that adds years to a rabbit's life, and it costs nothing. I will come back to it. Fact 1. A rabbit is not a rodent. It has its own order, the lagomorphs, and it split from rodents a very long time ago. Fact 2. The giveaway is behind the front teeth. Look behind a rabbit's top incisors, and there is a second, smaller pair of teeth sitting directly behind them, called peg teeth. No rodent has those. That is what makes a rabbit a rabbit. Fact 3. A rabbit is not a hare either, and they are not even the same genus. Rabbit babies are born blind, deaf, and naked underground. Hare babies are born furred, eyes open, above ground, ready to run within the hour. Fact 4. Which means the Easter bunny is, historically speaking, a hare. So is the March hare, so is the one in the moon. We flattened 2 different animals into one cartoon. Fact 5. Every breed you have heard of, lop, dwarf, rex, giant, lionhead, comes from one wild species, the European rabbit, which originally lived in Spain and Portugal and almost nowhere else. Fact 6. Spain may be named after it. One theory holds that Phoenician traders called the peninsula the land of hyraxes, having mistaken the local rabbits for an animal from home, and that Rome turned this into Hispania, a country possibly named after a misidentified rabbit. Fact 7. Rabbits are late domestics, and the famous story about how it happened is wrong. For decades, everyone repeated that French monks domesticated them around the year 600, after a papal edict declared rabbit fetuses to be fish, and therefore legal during Lent. Fact 8. Oxford researchers went looking for that edict in 2018 and found there was never one. Somebody centuries ago had confused Pope Gregory with Saint Gregory of Tours, who had simply mentioned a man he knew eating young rabbits during Lent. That misreading became a fact, got into textbooks, and stayed there for a very long time. Fact 9. The honest answer is that nobody can date it. Rabbit domestication was slow, blurry, and had no starting gun, which the same researchers argue is true of most domestication. We just prefer stories with a beginning. Fact 10. Either way, the rabbit is recent. Dogs go back tens of thousands of years, sheep and pigs around 10,000. The rabbit as a kept animal is a medieval arrival at best. Now the part almost nobody looks for, because we decided long ago there was nothing there. Fact 11. Rabbits learn their names. Not reliably, not like a dog, and not if you shout. But a rabbit that has decided you are worth listening to will lift its head and come. Fact 12. They litter train themselves, mostly. Rabbits naturally pick one corner as a toilet, and will not soil where they sleep or eat. Put a tray in the corner they already chose, and the job is close to done. Fact 13. They learn tricks. Rabbits can be clicker trained to spin, jump through hoops, come when called, run agility courses, and target a stick with their nose. There is a competitive sport for it, rabbit show jumping, invented in Sweden. Fact 14. And they solve problems. Rabbits work out how to open a cage door, get under a fence, or move an obstacle, and they remember the solution. Anyone who has rabbit-proofed a room has lost this argument at least once. Fact 15. They know their humans apart. Rabbits distinguish people by voice and by movement, and they behave differently toward the person who feeds them, the person who once grabbed them, and the stranger. Fact 16. They hold grudges. A rabbit that has been picked up against its will or taken to a vet will avoid the person who did it, sometimes for weeks, and will turn its back on you deliberately. That specific move, a rabbit swinging around to face away from you, is not indifference. It is a statement. Fact 17. Rabbits communicate constantly, almost entirely without sound. Ears, posture, tail, chin, the angle of the body. A rabbit is talking all the time. We are simply not looking. Fact 18. The chin is a signaling device. Rabbits have a scent gland under it and rub it on furniture, on doorways, on their bonded partner, and on you. Being chinned is a rabbit telling the room that you belong to it. Fact 19. Nose nudging means move, or notice me. A hard nudge is an order. A soft one is a request. Fact 20. Rabbits ask to be groomed. A rabbit that pushes its head under your hand and holds it there is asking, in exactly the way it would ask another rabbit. Fact 21. And they expect it back. In a bonded pair, grooming runs both ways, and a rabbit that always grooms and never gets groomed is being treated badly. When your rabbit asks and you ignore it, you are being rude in a language you did not know you were speaking. Fact 22. The tooth purr is real. A relaxed rabbit grinds its front teeth softly, producing a faint vibration you can feel through your fingers. It means the same thing a cat's purr means. Fact 23. Loud tooth grinding means the opposite. A rabbit crunching its teeth audibly, hunched, is in serious pain. Same behavior, different volume, opposite meaning, and this one sends animals to the vet far too late. Fact 24. The thump is an alarm. A rabbit slams both hind feet into the ground, and the sound carries through soil, warning every rabbit in the burrow system. A house rabbit thumping at 3 in the morning has heard something, and is telling you about it. Fact 25. Then there is the binky. A rabbit runs, launches into the air, twists its whole body sideways, sometimes flicks its head at the same time, and lands running. Fact 26. It means joy. That is the whole explanation. There is no function, no purpose, no display value. It is what a rabbit does when it feels completely safe and has more energy than it needs. Fact 27. Which makes the binky a welfare measurement. A rabbit will not do it if it is frightened, in pain, or in a space too small to run. If you have never seen your rabbit binky, that is information, and it is not good information. Fact 28. The flop is the other one. A rabbit throws itself onto its side so hard it looks like it has been shot. New owners regularly panic and think their pet has died. Fact 29. It is the deepest sign of trust the animal has. A rabbit on its side, legs out, is a prey animal that has decided nothing here is going to eat it. That posture is the point of everything else in this video. Fact 30. Rabbits are intensely social, and it is the thing pet rabbits are most often denied. In the wild, they live in groups of up to 20, in a warren, with a hierarchy, constant contact and shared grooming. Alone is not a thing a rabbit is built to be. Fact 31. A rabbit kept by itself in a hutch is in solitary confinement. That is not campaign language. It is a description. No company, no space to run, nothing to chew, a prey animal alone in a box. Fact 32. Several countries have written this into law. In Switzerland and Austria, keeping a rabbit alone is prohibited or heavily restricted because the animal is legally recognized as social. Sweden and Norway impose serious minimum space requirements. In most of the world, you can still buy one and put it in a cage the size of a suitcase. Fact 33. Bonded rabbits are inseparable. They eat together, sleep pressed against each other, and groom each other's faces. Split a bonded pair and both will stop eating. Fact 34. When one dies, the survivor should be shown the body. Rescues advise this routinely because a rabbit whose partner simply vanishes will search, stop eating, and decline. Left alone with the body for an hour, it grieves and then recovers. Whatever you want to call that, it is a real effect and rescues plan around it. Fact 35. Bonding two rabbits is not simple. Strangers fight, sometimes seriously, and it takes weeks of supervised introductions on neutral ground. It is also the difference between an animal that exists and one that has a life. Fact 36. Rabbits also bond with humans on their own terms, and the terms are not the ones we expect. Which brings me to the thing I got wrong for years. I grew up thinking a rabbit was a cuddly animal. You pick it up, you hold it, it goes still, and that stillness reads as contentment. That reading is completely backwards. A rabbit lifted off the ground is a rabbit that has been caught by a predator, and going limp is what a caught animal does. What looks like a cuddle is, from the inside, the worst moment of the animal's day. Fact 37. Most rabbits genuinely dislike being picked up. The affection is available, it just happens at floor level. Sit on the ground, wait, and let the rabbit come to you. That is how a rabbit does a relationship. Fact 38. Picking one up wrong can kill it. A rabbit's skeleton is startlingly light relative to its muscle, and a frightened rabbit kicking out in midair can fracture its own spine. Let's see it. It is one of the more common serious injuries in pet rabbits, and it is caused entirely by handling. Fact 39. There is also a trick people still do called trancing, laying a rabbit on its back until it goes limp and motionless. It looks like the rabbit is relaxed and enjoying it. Fact 40. It is not. Research measuring heart rate and stress hormones during trancing found the physiological signature of an animal in terror, playing dead. That absolute stillness is the same tonic immobility a rabbit produces in the mouth of a fox. Fact 41. Rabbits have measurable moods. In tests, rabbits kept in enriched conditions interpret ambiguous situations optimistically, and rabbits kept in barren ones expect the worst outcome. The same cognitive bias measured in humans and in pigs. A rabbit can be in a bad mood, and its housing decides it. Quick question, and I want a rough head count. Have you ever kept a rabbit? And if you did you know at the time that it needed another rabbit? Be honest in the comments, because I did not, and I suspect most people did not either. Now the body, because past this point the rabbit stops being a soft toy. Fact 42. A rabbit's eyes sit high on the sides of its head, giving it a field of view of nearly 360 degrees. It can watch the sky behind its own back without turning. Fact 43. The cost is directly in front of its nose. There is a blind spot right under the chin, which is why a rabbit sometimes fumbles for a treat held straight in front of it. It cannot see your hand. It is finding it by smell and whisker. Those pauses are the part that stops me. A hibernating hedgehog holds its breath. Recorded apnea in this species has run to around 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours without taking a breath, at a body temperature you would find in a fridge. A human diver at the absolute limit of trained ability manages about 11 minutes. None of that is passive either. Biologists used to assume a hibernating animal simply cooled to match its surroundings. It does not. Body temperature is actively regulated all the way down, and if the air outside drops below about -5 degrees, A hibernating hedgehog will raise its own temperature to compensate without necessarily waking up at all. And it is not a coma. Touch a hibernating hedgehog and it will bristle and tighten its ball. Something in there is still on duty. Here is the counterintuitive part. Hibernation is not one long sleep. It is a series of torpor bouts, broken by arousals, where the animal warms itself all the way back up to normal temperature, stays awake for a few hours or a day, and then goes back down. Undisturbed animals do this roughly every week or so. Those arousals are ruinously expensive. Warming a whole body from 5 degrees to 35 by burning fat costs a very large share of the entire winter's energy budget. A hedgehog spends most of its stored reserves not on sleeping through the cold, but on repeatedly waking up in the middle of it. Which is why weight is everything. A hedgehog going into winter underweight does not wake up. The rule of thumb used by rescues is that an animal much under about 600 grams in late autumn is unlikely to survive until spring. And that creates the specific tragedy of the autumn juvenile. Hedgehogs born late in the year, second litters, in September or October, simply do not have time to reach the weight. They are out foraging in daylight in November, visibly small, running out of season. Those are the animals that fill rescue centers every winter. I did not know any of that the first time I found one. A hedgehog in the garden in daylight in late autumn, moving slowly, and my instinct was to leave it alone, because that is what you are told about wildlife. That was wrong, and I want to be blunt about it. A hedgehog out in daylight is not a hedgehog having a nice time. It is an emergency. I will come back to what to actually do. Second question, and this one is a fork. If you found one right now, would you know who to call? Honestly, yes or no in the comments. I am curious whether this is common knowledge, or whether almost nobody has the number. Now the babies, which are stranger than they have any right to be. A hoglet is born pink, blind, and, the obvious problem, inside a mother who is essentially a bag of spines. Evolution solved this in a way that sounds made up. The spines are already there at birth, formed, but they are underneath a layer of fluid-filled skin. The baby comes out smooth. Within hours, the fluid is absorbed, the skin tightens, and around 100 soft white spines push through. Those first white spines are temporary. A second set, darker, comes through underneath within days, and the animal keeps replacing and adding spines for weeks. By the time it leaves the nest, it has thousands. A typical litter is 4 or 5, born blind and deaf, weighing about as much as a pound coin each. Very few of them make it. Mortality before independence is high, and the mother is easily disturbed. A nest interfered with in the first days can lead to her abandoning or eating the young, which sounds monstrous and is a straightforward calculation about a litter that is now unlikely to survive anyway. And here is the bit I keep thinking about. A young hedgehog gets 1 summer, roughly, to reach a weight that will carry it through a winter. Most do not. In the wild, average lifespan is short. 2 or 3 years is a normal life, though individuals can reach 7 or more. The whole species runs close to the margin every single year. Now the antibiotics, because I flagged this at the start, and it is genuinely one of my favorite pieces of recent biology. Here's the claim, and then the mechanism. A superbug that our hospitals fight every day appeared on the backs of hedgehogs roughly 200 years before we made the drug it resists. Up to 60% of hedgehogs in parts of northern Europe are carrying it. 2 things live on a hedgehog's skin. One is Staphylococcus aureus, an ordinary bacterium that also lives on about 1/3 of all humans without doing anything. The other is a fungus called Trichophyton erinacei, which causes what vets call hedgehog ringworm. The fungus and the bacterium are competing for the same skin, and the fungus fights chemically. It produces its own antibiotics, compounds in the same family as the drugs we manufacture. So on the back of a hedgehog, for a very long time, there has been a small chemical war. The fungus attacks with antibiotics. The bacteria that happen to resist survive and breed. The ones that do not die. That is exactly the process we run in a hospital. It was running on this animal before hospitals existed. A large international team, including groups at Cambridge, Oxford, and the Statens Serum Institute in Copenhagen, sequenced the bacteria from hedgehogs across Europe and New Zealand and published the results in Nature. They found 16 distinct lineages of a strain called MEC-MRSA. Mapping the mutations, they dated the 3 oldest lineages to between 130 and 200 years ago. Penicillin reached medicine in the 1940s. Methicillin came later. MRSA was first identified in a patient in 1960. So the resistance predates the drug by a century and a half. There's a photograph from that work I would recommend looking up. It is an agar plate with the fungus growing in the middle, ordinary staph streaked down one side and the resistant strain down the other. On one side, there is a clean ring of dead space where the fungus has killed everything. On the other side, the bacteria grow right up to it, untouched. That is antibiotic resistance, photographed in a system nobody designed. It matters beyond the trivia. Antibiotic resistance is usually told as a story of human error, overprescription, farm antibiotics, patients not finishing courses. All of that is real, and it is the main driver of what we face in hospitals. But those resistance genes had to come from somewhere before we ever started selecting for them. This is one case where the origin can actually be traced, and it is a fungus on the back of a garden animal. The researchers were also careful about something, and I will pass it on exactly as they put it. This is not a reason to be afraid of hedgehogs. Around 1 in 200 human MRSA infections involves this strain. Transmission to people is rare, and it has been present in hedgehogs for 2 centuries without being a public health event. All wildlife carries bacteria. Hedgehogs are just the ones we happen to swab. Now the gene, which is the other thing this animal has ended up attached to. In 1980, Christiane Nusslein-Volhard and Eric Wieschaus published a screen of fruit fly mutants, an enormous, systematic hunt for the genes that lay out an embryo's body plan. It won them a Nobel Prize 15 years later, and it is one of the foundational pieces of modern biology. One of the mutants they found produced larvae covered in small, disordered, pointy projections. They named the gene hedgehog. Years later, 3 labs went looking for the vertebrate equivalents and found 3 of them. The plan was to name all 3 after real hedgehog species, and 2 of them are desert hedgehog and Indian hedgehog. The third got named by a postdoc in Cliff Tabin's lab at Harvard, named Robert Riddle, and he called it Sonic Hedgehog. The origin story has 2 versions from the people who were there, which I find charming rather than annoying. Riddle's own account is that his wife brought home a magazine with an advert for the video game on the back, and that he partly liked it as a sideways nod to the band Sonic Youth. Tabin has recalled a comic book brought over from Britain. Either way, a gene in your body is named after a Sega character, and it is not a minor gene. Sonic Hedgehog is one of the central signaling molecules in vertebrate development. It tells a developing limb bud which side becomes the thumb and which becomes the little finger. It patterns the neural tube that becomes your spinal cord. It organizes the midline of the brain and the structure of the face. And then the joke curdles, in a way genetics has actually had to argue about. Mutations in this gene cause holoprosencephaly, a severe condition in which the forebrain fails to divide into 2 hemispheres. It is often fatal. That means clinicians have had to sit in rooms and explain to parents that their child has a mutation in a gene named after a cartoon hedgehog. Several geneticists have said publicly that the whimsical naming era was a mistake, and the field has largely stopped doing it. Now, the part the whole video has been walking towards. The ball works. It is a genuinely excellent answer to a fox, a dog, an owl, a stoat. It has been the right answer for millions of years. The modern hedgehog body shows up in the fossil record long before most of the mammals we consider clever, and it has barely needed revision since, because the problem it solved stayed solved. And here is the weakness I promised you. A hedgehog's response to a threat is to stop moving and become a ball. That is precisely the wrong response to a car. One study of British road data estimated something in the order of 167,000 hedgehogs killed by vehicles every year, and other estimates have run as high as 335,000. Against a national population that has been put at well under 1 million, those numbers are not a background loss. They are a significant share of the animal. The same instinct fails against every modern hazard. A strimmer approaches, the hedgehog balls up and does not run. A bonfire pile looks like an ideal nest, and it is, right up until November the 5th. Netting, litter, plastic rings, drains, steep-sided ponds. The animal's defense against all of them is to hold still and tense up. But roads are the visible part, and the underlying problem is quieter than that. Britain's hedgehog population has been falling for decades, and the current picture splits in two.
In the countryside, the decline is severe. National assessments put rural losses at somewhere between 1/3 and 3/4 over the last 20 years, with the steepest falls in eastern England. In towns and cities, the picture has actually stabilized and may be improving. That split tells you the cause. It is farmland. Bigger fields, fewer hedgerows, less scrub, fewer rough margins, and far fewer insects than there were a generation ago. A hedgehog needs connected cover to move through and enough invertebrates to make a night's walk worth it. Modern arable landscape offers neither. The animal is not being killed off in the countryside so much as starved out of it, quietly, over decades. Which produces a genuinely odd conclusion. In Britain, the hedgehog's best remaining habitat is suburbia. Gardens, allotments, parks, railway embankments, churchyards. The species that is failing on farmland is being kept going by people with lawns.
With one condition attached, and it is the reason I mentioned those nightly walks earlier. So, the practical section. This is a rare animal video where what you do this week actually changes the outcome, and none of it is expensive. The single biggest thing is a hole. A hedgehog needs to cross 12 gardens a night, and modern fencing with gravel boards has turned British suburbia into a grid of sealed boxes. A gap of about 13 centimeters square at the base of a fence is enough for a hedgehog and too small for almost any pet. Cut one, or lift one board. If your neighbors do it too, you have connected a corridor. And that is the whole basis of the Hedgehog Highway campaign. Second, water, not milk. Hedgehogs are lactose intolerant. Bread and milk, the traditional offering, causes serious diarrhea and can kill a weak animal. A shallow dish of water, and if you want to feed them, meaty cat or dog food or dedicated hedgehog food. Third, check before you cut or burn.
Look under and inside long grass before strimming, and never light a bonfire that has been sitting for days without moving the whole pile first, ideally to a new spot. Both of these kill large numbers of hedgehogs every year, and both are entirely avoidable. Fourth, ponds need an exit. Hedgehogs swim well and drown constantly because they cannot climb a vertical liner. A sloping edge, a plank, or a piece of chicken wire hanging into the water solves it. Fifth, slug pellets and heavy pesticide use remove the food supply and may poison the animal directly. If the hedgehogs are there, you have less need of the pellets anyway. And the one that matters most. A hedgehog out in daylight, lying still, wobbling, sunbathing, or obviously small in late autumn, is in trouble. Healthy adults do not do this. Contain it in a high-sided box with a towel. Put a covered hot water bottle underneath. No food or water beyond a shallow dish, and phone a rescue. In Britain, the British Hedgehog Preservation Society keeps a national list of carers. That call is often the difference. Before the end, one complication, because the story is not the same everywhere. Hedgehogs were introduced to New Zealand by settlers who wanted something familiar in the garden. There are no native land mammals there to speak of, and the local invertebrates, lizards and ground-nesting birds, evolved with no experience of anything like this. Hedgehogs now eat native insects, snails, lizards, and eggs across large areas, and they are classed as a pest and controlled. The same animal Britain is trying to save is trapped and killed in New Zealand for very good reasons. So here is the third question, and it is the one I actually want argued about. Is a hedgehog worth protecting because of what it is, or because of where it is? The animal has not changed, only the address has. Tell me where you land. So what is a hedgehog?
It is a small insect-eating mammal that solved its central problem a very long time ago, and then stopped. 5,000 hollow, braced hairs. One circular muscle that turns a body into a sealed sphere. A tolerance for poisons that lets it eat what nothing else will touch. A winter shutdown so deep it holds its breath for hours at a time. And a habit of foaming at the mouth and painting itself for reasons that remain, after decades of observation, completely unexplained. It also turns out to have been keeping records. 2 centuries of antibiotic resistance evolved on its back, in a war between a fungus and a bacterium that had nothing to do with us. Quiet proof that the thing we are most frightened of in medicine is older than medicine itself. And a gene named after its silhouette, currently building the hands of every vertebrate embryo on the planet. None of which the hedgehog knows about or benefits from in the slightest, because the animal itself is in trouble. And the reason is almost boring. Its defense is stillness, and stillness does not work on a road. Its food is insects, and there are fewer. Its habitat is connected rough ground, and we cut it into squares and fence them. The thing that gets me is the mismatch. This animal survived every predator Europe could produce. It out-armored them, out-chemistryed them, and outlasted most of them. And it is being finished off by garden fencing, tidy verges, and a slightly different type of hedge. That is not a tragedy on a grand scale. Nobody is going to make a film about it. It is a small brown animal disappearing from the edges of ordinary places, at a speed slow enough that most people will simply forget it was ever there in the first place. Ask anyone over 60 how often they saw hedgehogs as a child, then ask anyone under 20. The gap in those 2 answers is the entire story. Last question, and I would like real answers.
What is the animal you remember from childhood that you have not seen in years? Not somewhere exotic, in the ordinary places where you live. Name it below. I want to see how much of this is happening quietly everywhere. And if this is your kind of thing, real studies, nothing smoothed over, no cute ending bolted on, then subscribe. Coming up, an animal people fear for completely the wrong reason.